Welcome to our cybersecurity awareness training. This particular session is really going to look at it from a different perspective, as opposed to just talking about phishing and scamming and ransomware, which we will touch on. In this particular lesson, I really wanted everyone to have an idea about what an organization is doing from top to bottom and what we do to try to defend ourselves against cybercrime. And I hope this gives everyone a nice perspective of the big picture. So with that in mind, let's move along here. So what do cybersecurity efforts require from an organizational perspective? Well, one, they require leadership. Two, they require an infrastructure. This is the hardware in place. They, of course, require soft and hard solutions, cybersecurity software, firewalls, and of course it requires monitoring and response. And this is something that all of you can hear from us when we see a phishing attack come in. We often will respond and communicate with everybody about a particular message. And of course training and more training. And the reason I say training and more training is not only is it training for staff, it's training for the IT department. And it has to be continual and regular because things are always changing. So why is cybersecurity important? Well, we all know that cybersecurity is important because it protects our organization and yourselves from theft and damage. This includes the theft of sensitive data, personally identifiable information, you will hear this referred to as PII, intellectual property, information that's about that organization, financial information, and of course all of our data systems. And of course, without a cybersecurity program, organizations like ours cannot defend themselves against data breaches. And these data breaches often lead to financial loss, liability risk, as well as data and system damage. And of course, these thefts regularly occur and they continually change. This is a never-ending responsibility for all of us. So managing cybersecurity is a 24/7 responsibility. Cybersecurity must have a committed ownership and understanding by the IT staff and by each and every one of us. Someone on staff, hopefully like me, a CIO, is responsible for the organization's cybersecurity strategy. All staff, each and every one of us, must be trained regularly in all aspects of cybersecurity. Local government has a special challenge when it comes to cybercrime. And why is that? There actually are many logical reasons why local governments often struggle with this. One is poor cybersecurity leadership in the organization. Many local governments simply farm out, outsource IT or even their cybersecurity defense. This is a mistake. Lack of any technology staff. If there's no one on staff that's managing IT and responsible for cybersecurity, there's no one communicating with staff and double checking these attacks when they happen. Insufficient cybersecurity investment. I get this one. Organizations when they spend money, they want to see an instant gratification. If you spend money to fix a pothole, the community can see that that pothole has been fixed and that money has been spent. However, when IT wants to spend money on cybersecurity defense, disaster recovery, and backups, very often these benefits cannot be seen immediately if you're just looking at a budget, because how do you see a backup plan if it's not needed? So I understand that. Poor day-to-day cybersecurity management. Cybersecurity must be managed on a day-to-day basis and an hour-by-hour basis. It cannot just be looked at once a month. Inadequate, if any, staff training. Training staff, all of you, and us here in IT as well, is critical to defending the organization. This must be a regular task. And as I said earlier about farming these things out, organizations very often put too much trust in a contractor. It should not be forgotten that any organization is not the only organization a contractor serves. They have many customers. When you have an IT staff and they're managing cybersecurity in particular, that's their focus, not other companies and other people. Of course, there must be an active and engaged technology staff. Technology staff here, we strive to communicate with our employees, our coworkers regularly and on a down-to-earth level when it comes to technology and cybersecurity in particular. This is critical to remember also. Cybersecurity events, attacks, require an instant response, an instant investigation, and an instant remediation. What do these mean? Instant responses. We need to look at the particular email that has hit our server, that has hit our email, and we need to see where it went. And we also need to check to see if anyone has opened the message. So the first thing we can do when there's a particular suspicious message that is reported to us by any of you, we can immediately see who that message has gone to, and we can actually remove those messages from the mailbox. We can then check to see if any of the users has interacted with that message. Did they open the attachment? Did they click on a link? Did they forward it somewhere else? And then we can take action to hopefully prevent any damage. And of course, technology staff must be able to communicate with everyone on a non-technical level. It's very important. And this should occur regularly, not just in quarterly cybersecurity training, but it should be part of the day-to-day routine of what IT does. And all of you hopefully are comfortable coming to us with any suspicious message or interaction you have. And so what are some of the primary threats that organizations face today when it comes to cybercrime? One is a DDoS threat, which is short for distributed denial of service. These are actions by cyber criminals in which they basically want to flood your network with so much activity that there's no room to do normal day-to-day work. So the internet just slows down, network traffic slows down. This is something that has become less of a threat to me. It's something that we are aware of in IT, but I'm not that fearful of it. Typically, who gets attacked would be our internet provider. We have a couple of them. We would switch to another one while that attack was being investigated. Not a lot of profit in there either for the bad guys. It's just another reason I'm not too worried about it. But we are aware of it. Internal threats. This is what I would call an insider IT threat. This is the threats of employees or soon-to-be ex-employees or upset employees who may want to steal information and release it or cause further damage to the organization by that theft or release of information. This is one reason internally here why we are enhancing our two-factor authentication to help us protect against these internal threat indicators. And of course, the big one is email threats. These are phishing emails, scam emails, emails that attempt to trick the reader into taking action they otherwise would not. This is the biggest threat today. It is now also, it takes place with text messages and even phone calls. I'm going to pause for 1 second here. I apologize. I had an itchy nose and I had to have some coffee. So here we go. And of course, today email threats are of course the most common. And this is simply because I call it lazy crime. This is easy for cyber criminals. They write an email, and in the narrative, they try to trick you into taking an action, allowing them, you're opening the door and letting them in the network. If you click on a link, open an attachment in these phishing emails. So you're kind of opening the door for them. They don't have to write a lot of code. They just have to get you to do something for them. It's like, the bad guy knocking on your door at home and pretending to be someone he's not, and you get tricked and you let him in. That's kind of what phishing emails are doing in the digital landscape. So let's touch a little bit on phishing, because it is such a common threat. So what is phishing? Phishing is simply an attack in which a cyber criminal poses as a trusted person or an organization to trick potential victims into sharing sensitive information or sending them money. Think of the bad guy knocking on your door and pretending to be somebody he's not. Phishing attacks often begin with the cyber criminal sending a communication. It could be an email, it could be a text message, it could even be a phone call, and acting as someone that you trust. This is why a lot of phishing emails say they're from Microsoft or UPS or FedEx or Walmart or Target, because these are institutions that we typically trust. And then this sender will ask you to take an action, often implying an urgent need to do so. I want to touch on the urgent need to do so. Very often, these email messages will try to scare you by going, you have 60 minutes to do this, or there's an important package that needs to be delivered, or we're going to send it back, or we have information that you need right away. Because very often, if you think about it, when we don't think and we act quickly, we often make mistakes. Another rule of thumb, which I don't think I have in this presentation, to think of is this: no email has a requirement for you to respond. If you believe it's urgent, but you have any doubt, go seek out that person outside of the email. So if the email is saying it's your boss, call your boss. If it's a coworker and it sounds funny, call your coworker. And the same thing with the stakeholder or contractor. There is no requirement for an immediate response. These are not house fires, these are email messages. A couple things here that we touched on in the physical class that we had for this is all these things to watch for. I'm not going to read all the detail, but I will touch on each header. So number one, don't trust the display name of who the email is from. So in the Outlook in particular, if it says it's William Mann, you can hover over that email, over that name, and very often see what the actual email address is. So if it's not wman@westchester.com and it's something else, it is not from me. If you hover over the name and it doesn't immediately display the email address, you can often right-click on it and say Open Properties, and then you would see the actual email address. And the reason this is important to understand is bad guys have the ability to hide the actual email address from the name. So be aware of that. Look but don't click on links. There's no reason to click on the links. Check for spelling errors. If the email has a bad narrative, bad grammar, bad punctuation, and it's coming from a professional person, it very well could be a phishing email. Consider how the salutation. If they say, if your name is Bill and it says Dear Mr. Bill, it's probably a phishing email. So be aware of those small details. Is the email asking for personal information? You should not be sending personal information anyway through email. Be aware of urgency, as I said. When people want you to panic, this is because they know you're more apt to make a mistake. Check the email signature. Does it make sense? Is it accurate? Be careful with attachments. Don't believe everything you see. Be cautious. And when in doubt, contact your IT department. And our staff here, all of you are wonderful with this. We have great stats of all of you reporting suspicious messages to us. Now, a lot of times these aren't actual phishing messages, but they're unwanted. And IT is here to take that time to double check anything you're concerned about. And even if it's unwanted or just plain old spam that got through the system, we remove that anyway because it's unnecessary and gets in the way of you getting your job done. So never stop sending us things. Okay, I highlighted these numbers, so I'm going to skip through this. Ransomware. This is very well known because it's in the news. And why is it in the news all the time? Because it's happening all the time. Our organizations are falling for this all the time. They're acting on it only takes one employee to click on a phishing email and click on a link and lets us get into the system and lock all the files down. So it takes one person with one mistake. So we're only as strong as our weakest link. And none of us are a weak link. Not here anyway. So what is ransomware? Ransomware is a type of malicious software that prevents you from accessing your computer files, your systems, files on your network. It can lock your entire network down. And this puts an organization right in a really bad spot if your network's locked down, if they can't access their information. Ransomware will cost disruptions to organizations. It will cost the loss of critical information and data and uptime. Organizations just go down when this happens. Of course, you can unknowingly download ransomware onto a computer by opening an email attachment and clicking on an advertisement, following a link, or even visiting a website that's embedded with malware. I need to drink some coffee. So of course, when this happens, I know I say of course a lot, I apologize. Once the code is loaded on a computer, it will lock that computer down, and it can spread to other computers within the network and spread to the servers themselves. And this will lock everything down. And it puts the organization in a really bad spot. To pay or not to pay, this is something that I feel strongly about as I talk about organizations paying or not paying. Remember this, even if your organization's data is unlocked, the cyber criminal will keep a digital copy of that stolen data, meaning our organization has lost control of it. Although the information might be given back to us, there's a copy of that out, and that can be used and probably will be used for malicious purposes. So this would be a threat hanging over the organization's head even after they paid the ransomware. The cyber criminal can do it all over again. Word begins to spread amongst cyber criminals that your organization is an easy target, inviting other cyber criminals to give it a try. The cyber criminal may not actually unlock the data after we make payment. They may ask for more money. And this can go on and on and on, and often does. Organizations that pay ransom invite this criminal activity to happen again and again. And of course, I said it again, of course, the cost is much larger than the ransomware alone. Be aware, if there is a successful data breach or a ransomware attack, your organization is going to have to do an overview of the network and all the security processes and the organization's policies. All of this will take time. All of this will cost tens of thousands of dollars, and very often the system is down while this is happening. And all the spending is unplanned. There will be downtime as the cyber threat is being responded to, and quite possibly much longer as the organization researches new cybersecurity solutions and possibly even replacing hardware and rebuilding solutions. There will be a credibility hit to your organization. Word will get out that you don't have your house in order, your cybersecurity house, that is, in order. There will be liability challenges for many years as the stolen data is exposed and released. And this is often done little by little, meaning the damage just continues to happen over time. Every organization, like ours, should have an action plan, a cybersecurity response action plan. I think of this as an emergency response plan in the same way that the police department and the fire department and emergency services has plans for responding to emergencies. So let's recap real quickly this session. Organizations should have a cybersecurity action response plan. Cybersecurity management must be a primary role of the IT leader. Relying too much on a contractor is dangerous. It's something we take very seriously here. Regular cybersecurity focused IT planning and review meetings. Here, Jeff and I meet every Friday for at least 2 hours, and the only focus of that conversation is cybersecurity efforts. This is very important, so we stay on top of everything, so we can help the organization and all of you be safe. Conduct phishing and other security training audits. These are the phishing messages we send out regularly to not harass you, but to continue to train everyone, so we can gauge how people are responding, so we can do a better job, and when necessary, talk to staff one-on-one and really drill down on how we all respond to these types of messaging. On-site and off-site backups, we of course do these things. Cloud-to-cloud backup today, many organizations, not just us, use services like Microsoft 365. These are cloud-based services, meaning our data is traveling outside of our servers, and they're traveling from one provider to the other and living elsewhere. So these provide us, these cloud-to-cloud backups give us the ability to protect our data, even if these agencies that we trust have a data breach or a data problem or a security issue. Physical firewalls and virtual private networks. I won't get into specifics of these, but organizations need to have these. Web security, we try to manage the web traffic in the organization. This is really for reliability and performance issues. Advanced threat protection. These are when you hear the word Barracuda, and we talk about phishing messages being remediated and investigated, and you report things to us, we're using advanced threat protection services to handle these tasks. Security awareness training, this is what we're doing here, and what we try to do at least every 3 months, and I try to do with all of you on a day-to-day basis. Thus, the Cybersecurity Friday newsletter. Limit the ability to install programs. We don't restrict employees from installing programs because we want to be a pain or a nuisance or slow work down. We control the installation of programs so bad applications, software, or malware does not get mistakenly installed on our services by an employee. So when we're asked to install a program, we try to respond right away to you, and we make sure that that is a legitimate program before it gets placed on our organization's equipment. Of course, there's antivirus software on all of our computers. Remote management, this allows IT to remote in and help you immediately if we can't get right to you. Very important. We have redundant servers, of course. We have VLAN separation, meaning the police department is on a different LAN than the borough administration. Our access points and our printers and even our Teams phones are all sit on different LANs. So if there is a breach or an attack on one of them, it cannot jump to the other one. Think of it as a highway. There's a crash on the northbound lane, but in the southbound lane, traffic is still running smoothly. This is why we separate different parts of our network into different local area networks. Two-factor authentication. I know people have a love-hate relationship with this. I have a love relationship with this. And the reason I do is because it goes a long way in not only protecting our personal information, but our organization's information. And we are in the process now of even expanding what we're doing in-house with two-factor authentication. So be prepared for that if you haven't been brought on board with the new two-factor authentication. Your time is coming. And onboarding and offboarding, IT needs to be part of the onboarding and offboarding processes of employees. This is for security purposes, in addition to performance. So with that, this being the digital recording of our session, send me any emails or communicate with me any way you want to in reference to anything cybersecurity related. With that being in mind, I hope everyone has a great weekend. If you're watching this on Friday, I'm putting this on the newsletter on Friday. And stay cyber safe, and see everybody soon. Bye.